time editing this.
No. Tell me, for the youngsters in the world, you're 87 now?
Yep.
Okay. Tell me what wasn't around when you were a kid that's around today. I mean,
computers.
right?
Before that, electric typewriters, handheld, all these electronic things, handheld, cell phones. You got me on that one. I can't spew them out fast enough.
Did you have, well, there was cars, there was airplanes, right, and all that?
Yeah, there were planes. Reason I can remember that, we had a neighbor in the neighborhood that had a parrot, and in the summer they would put it out on the back porch, enjoy the sun and the air, and it's hard to imagine, but it's true. There were not very many planes in the sky as there are nowadays. And when a plane would fly and the parrot was out on the back porch, it would cry out, "Pop, come get me, big bird, big bird." On Sunday, everybody went to this Presbyterian church in the evening. I can't forget the title of the group. And we listened to some spooky show, The Shadow Knows, and dumb stuff like that. But there was no drinking, teenage drinking of alcohol. The word weed meant a dandelion in the front lawn, and it was truly a different world. The church had a show called the Tom Thumb Wedding, and we were all like 5, 6, 7 years old. I was an usher in the wedding procession.
Whose wedding was it?
I don't know, but it wasn't mine.
Tell me a little bit about, you always talk about your mom. Tell me about your mom.
Well, she was a free spirit. My father could come home from work and find a for sale sign on the lawn. She had made a decision and she listed the goddamn house with a realtor without even mentioning it to the old man. She bought a car, had it delivered to the house, and didn't know how to drive it.
What happened then?
Well, the salesman who sold it to her gave her one driver's lessons. He referred her to a buddy of his who was an insurance salesman, and he gave her one lesson. And I think she drove for something like 47 years accident-free.
How about your dad? Did he drive?
Not ever, but he was a good critic.
Kind of like you.
Watch it, bud.
All right. Tell me about your first recollection in school, when you were like a little guy in school.
I don't know that it was the first, but it's a lasting one. This was a very stern teacher, 3rd grade, Miss Linhart. I remember her nastily. And I went to put something in the wastebasket in the classroom, and it was full. So I put my foot in on it, and she read me the riot act.
What did she say?
We don't ever put our feet in wastebaskets. That's not their purpose.
So how about your first fantasy?
First what?
Fantasy.
I haven't had that yet.
Tell me a little bit about your neighborhood when you were a kid.
I was the only Protestant in the Catholic neighborhood. The kids all shunned me because I didn't go to Mass with them.
Did you ever go to a Catholic church at all?
Went up the steps to the door, because that's where the big cigarette butts were.
What? Explain that.
Well, you could get a good long cigarette butt up there. People butts them just before they went in the door.
Did you smoke then? Way back then?
Yeah, weeds too. Oh wait, weeds now has a different meaning. When I smoked them, they were really weeds.
What was a pack of cigarettes? What did it cost for a pack of cigarettes when you were a kid?
Oh God, something like 15 cents, I think. I never bought them. I just smoked other people's butts.
Tell me about your dad a little bit.
About him?
Yeah.
Well, he was quite a pool shark, I learned later on in life, and he also played what was called semi-pro baseball. I don't know what semi-pro meant. Was that not quite with it or half-assed? But that's what he did well in his.
Well, what kind of relationship did you have with him?
My father never ever talked much. Exceptionally quiet man, and he just never ever talked to me.
How about your siblings?
What's a sibling? I had two older sisters. One was 8 years older than I, and the other one was 12.
Well, what were your sisters' names?
We all had very unique names. It seems that when we were, as each of us was born, my mother expressed a desire to give us names that could not be turned into a nickname. My older sister was Ethel, try one with that name, and the younger sister was Vera, try one with that. Nobody came up with one until I was born. I couldn't say Vera and I couldn't say Ethel. I could say wee wee and whoa whoa.
Now, there's one woman, I've known you for a couple of years now, and there's one woman in your life that unfortunately just passed.
Fran. She was quite a lady. She made it in the business world through her own efforts. She was sharp mentally. She was just a delight to be around. Oh, also, she had a sharp tongue. Well, you know, when you go back 70 or 80 years, it was a different world. And the women were second place citizens. They weren't allowed to be achievers, but she was an achiever. Made it big in real estate, made a lot of money, and was a very positive person. I remember one time we were driving down an expressway and she asked me to describe a bottle that was filled with liquid, but it was but halfway filled. And she asked me to describe it, and I said, without a moment's hesitation, half empty. She almost lost control of the car. I think the very first job was the U.S. Post Office. Yeah. I handled long distance mail. We had a separate category and separate handling procedure. And I sorted airmail for North and South, East and West, and foreign, called Gibson Art Company. And back in those days, greeting card buyers the salesman would drop their samples off at their office or their home or whatever, and the buyer would sit there and read every verse and hand select what she wanted.
You went from that little company and then you got hired by a major?
Yes, Hallmark. I thought they had beautiful cars and the absolutely greatest advertising campaign, which this was 1952, and I I was sent to Pennsylvania.
The jewelry, you had a jewelry business at one time?
Yeah, I saw an ad in the paper here in Florida, and talk about little Charlie dumbass. I was it. This guy, I had this conversation or interview with him, and I wrote him a check. I think initially it was $10,000, and I got this thing from an outfit called Bentley Jewels. Well, it turned out that Bentley Jewels were, what's the term? Fake diamonds, artificial, man-made. I paid $180 to this agency, and they referred me to Johnson Candy Company. Went there for the interview. They liked me, hired me, sent me by train to Cleveland, Ohio, where they had to discharge a salesman. And I picked up his car and his samples. And the idea, this was after World War II, like 1947, 48, and was to get the dealers to reintroduce us to the Powerhouse bar. I don't know if you ever heard of Powerhouse, did you? And we would go there and try to talk them into buying one case, 24 bars. We picked the case up each day from a different distributor because it was their candy, and we paid them for that. They taught us how to slice that so it looked like a much bigger piece. Slice it on an angle, give the dealer a sample, and anybody who was in the store. Well, that went over quite well.
Let me see. So you worked for the phone company for a while too.
Fast forward, 72, doesn't matter. When you're this old, what the hell?
What did you do for them?
I had gone to school and took a course in drafting and got a job there in the drafting department, and did schematics and stuff. It was, without a doubt, the worst bunch of people I ever worked with. One nasty son of a bitch after the other. The woman boss was the worst. And, I just did not fit in. But I had to work at that time, and I stayed with it. But they were a real collection of assholes. Not functioning.
How about real estate? Is that the longest job you ever had, or?
Perhaps it was, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think what helped you get through that was your friend Fran, right?
They could well have paid a charge, because what I learned about it, I learned from her.
Yeah. Tell me about her a little bit. It comes to work and all.
The first thing that she said, I asked somebody, were you in the service? Whenever I got a yes, you can get a home VA, nothing down. And she said, I had them every time. Now, here was a soul who was at ease with princes and paupers. Made no difference to this lady whatsoever.
That's awesome.